gotta write summonses. That's the only way you get people to do stuff.
That's not one of my plans.
You know, they have to pay. You know, if they have to pay a fine. What if some kid falls in that hole?
You don't have to tell me.
If somebody falls.
Otherwise, it's finish the
When I was young, that was my favorite place to play with dogs. Construction sites. We would find construction, and they didn't have fences back then. Thank God I never got killed.
Schedule all the important things on it. Someone wants.
I thought Louis was good, but you know.
The food's good, yeah. Yeah, no, the food is good. I had prawns the other night. They were like this big.
He's not coming to us.
Louis.
Time. He's here.
Oh, was it
Yeah.
Yeah, he'll come as he
People are
will.
thrilled.
Alrighty, welcome to the
Oh.
July 7th Board of Trustees regularly scheduled meeting. Please rise for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. First item of order is our public hearings. I'm going to make a motion to start the public hearing portion of our meeting. Seconded by Ms. Dorfman. All in favor? Excellent. All right, so our first public hearing is on the prior written notice, which we've had a few discussions on. Prior written notice of defect laws protect municipalities from liability by requiring that local governments receive prior written notice of a defect or unsafe condition before the municipality may be found liable for a claim arising from the defect or condition. Based upon recent case law, it is recommended that municipalities, like the village, clarify the manner in which such written notice could be delivered. We had this discussion last month. Trustee Smith, I think, brought up some points which we further discussed, and I believe Jeff changed and modified into the local law that is in your books. I don't know if any of the board members have any further questions on it. Does anyone from the public have any questions? That being no, I would like to make a wait, hold on. Jeff's going to say Randall. Randall, you didn't do the secret notification. So at the same time, I'm going to make a motion for secret. Currently, the actions taken by the village are type 2 actions under SECRA, which by definition have no significant impact on the environment. For those actions, the motion, For the purposes of the New York State Environmental Quality Review Act, or SECRA, I move that the village be identified as lead agency and that this action be deemed a type 2 action under SECRA, having no significant impact on the environment, and that as such, no further action is required under SECRA. So I'd like to make two motions. One, the SECRA motion, and two, to approve local law 5 of 2025 prior written notice. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor? Passes. Thank you, everybody. We're going to discuss the covered porches, but we're not going to take a vote on it tonight because we did not allow for sufficient public notice. If we remember our conversation from last month, and I will paraphrase from Mr. Opinski, who's very helpful in this, our village code currently allows 10% of the total floor area of a home to be used for an outdoor porch without subtracting from that total floor area. Wendy, am I loud enough for you? Okay, good. We agreed it'll be louder. The code was adopted to help promote porches, which encourages neighborly communication. Our code needs to be updated so that this bonus is only applied to the principal dwelling and not any accessory structures, which were not the intention of the code when it was adopted. I know Trustee Lewandowski had some questions from last month, and I believe those were addressed in what our village attorney has changed. Any questions from Mr. Lewandowski? Any questions from any of the board members? Any questions from the residents? No. I guess I will make a motion then to hold this over to next month. That will be the 8/4 Board of Trustees meeting at 7 p.m. where we will take a vote on this. So I'll make that motion, seconded by
I'll second.
Trustee Collins. All in favor?
Aye.
Excellent. I will make a motion to close the public hearing portion of our meeting.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Mr. Lewandowski. All in favor?
Aye.
Excellent. Thank you, Wendy. Public comment portion of the meeting. Anybody have public comments? That being said, no. We'll go to the next portion of our meeting. The approval of minutes. You'll find in your packet a giant pile of minutes from our last public meeting. I don't know if anyone had a chance to read this, if anybody had wanted to make any corrections or changes to this document. That being no, I will make a motion to accept the minutes of the June 2nd, 2025 meeting.
I will second.
Thank you, Trustee Frankel. All in favor?
Aye.
Excellent. Next, our motion to approve claims. I'm hoping everyone had a chance to read this voluminous document. That being said, I would like to make a motion to approve the payment of $346,847.04 for all of our claims for the month of July. And I believe in here, Suzanne, some of these are leftovers from June, correct?
Yes, and then when the accountant is here, he said today, they'll carry the monies back and we'll make journal entries so that payments that were made relating to the prior fiscal year will be documented in that fiscal year.
Excellent. So I will make a motion to approve the payment with those dollars that I just mentioned, seconded by,
I'll second.
that would be Trustee Deputy Mayor Janisse. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstentions for otherwise.
Thank you, Max. Next, 105 Wood Hill. I guess the homeowner's not here. Since the homeowner's not here, we will move that to next month, where they are looking to have the board approve a pier in the right-of-way that was built a very long time ago.
You mean, what's a
Yeah,
pier?
that's.
I only think of a pier as a waterfront. What's a pier?
Bye, Wendy.
Things with the, the little two things at the front.
Square brick thing.
Thanks. I didn't know those were called piers.
Yeah, sometimes there's lights on them, sometimes there's a decorative ball, sometimes there's eagles.
No, that was my question.
Yeah.
I actually wanted to kind of do one.
I don't even know if that's the right phrase.
Pier?
Pier, yeah.
That's the
Well,
way,
our code is
that's the way the
driveway
code
here.
reads.
Yeah,
Oh, so that's why.
that's why I'm quoting piers.
Isn't there
because-
another name for them? They ask an architect.
I don't know, we have any architects on the board?
Gary, I believe, is one.
Gary, what else could you possibly call it? Pier. Done.
I guess that's what they
Columns,
call them.
light columns?
No.
They're not light columns?
I've always liked how people do it, kind of graded.
Jeff, what are other-
Oh,
yeah,
yeah,
it's just
yeah.
inaccurate because
It's gotta be-
that would be the structural element that you would have if you're doing a fence or a gate or.
But that's good, so whoever wrote our code, I thank them for getting the proper terminology. Okay, next on our agenda is, I had a very interesting conversation, Marla and I, with Deputy, I'm going to say her title right, Deputy Inspector Kristen Ryan of the 6th Precinct, who actually, as a police officer, this was her post, the planned dome post of Flower Hill, many, many years ago. I don't remember her from those days, but she knows our roads very intricately well. And in our conversation with her, we were discussing safety improvements for the village. And their response of the tragic accident that happened on Middle Neck Road was to increase enforcement in that general area. And they issued quite a few violations, home safety, going through stop signs, pedestrians in crosswalks, and my favorite, avoiding a traffic control device. So people who might be cutting through those parking lots to avoid light.
Oh.
And that was they've written a good amount of tickets to help improve safety and to make people, aware of the rules of the road around here.
Any speeding tickets?
So that being said,
Or trucks.
In order to-
Needle Neck Road.
I didn't find out about the trucks, but
Still a lot of
Definitely
trucks.
was one. I know what was the office called it that day. I know there was at least one.
oh,
Truck.
good.
Yeah.
That was one of the topics I did bring up with Officer Ryan at the time. But in order to help support the 6th precinct with the speed enforcement, it was recommended that we replace the radar gun that they have in one of the local cars here that this village purchased quite a long time ago. And
What?
Radar.
radar or LiDAR, I guess is the proper term. So it was recommended that they have access to the equipment, but what they have to do is the officer has to go to the 6th precinct, check it out, bring it back. At the end of the shift, they have to check it, return it again. And that's why there is one device in the local cars here, but that device is old and outdated, and the officers aren't trained on that specific model. So I found out what model they currently use, and it's the sum of $2,845. And if we were to purchase this device, it would stay in the cars or in the car that is in the village here. So the 2 cars that patrol our village, they can share that piece of equipment. And I think that would really help them be able to write speeding tickets with a device that the officers are certified to use and that is not an older, outdated device.
It is a little weird that the village has to buy a speed gun for the Nassau County Police.
They-
I know Muncie Park
the
did.
revenue though?
Muncie Park did it too.
So-
They had to buy one.
Not unusual. I mean.
So again, they have the
Muncie
equipment,
Park just did it.
but they have to go to the 6th precinct from here. So that's time they're spending getting the
So,
equipment.
but if he's in the car with the Muncie Park speed gun, he can't use that in Colorado?
They can,
Hmm.
but it all depends on their post. So car 610 is not in Muncie Park. Car 610 is on our side. So like if it was in that car as an example, they would be able to use it here more frequently.
Mhm.
If it's in the other car in 610, I always never know what the other car number is. They could swap and borrow it from each other. It's a time saving issue, and this way they have it. If all of a sudden they want to start writing speeding tickets,
Mhm.
then they can do so. But
Okay.
yes, the revenue, not all the revenue, but
the
some of the revenue does reside in the village.
Do you know what
The
percent approximately?
The state gets certain numbers. Jeff can possibly share.
Or it depend, if they pull over on Port Washington Boulevard, I think if it's a state road, some of it goes to the state. It's a county road, so
I think it
that's how it
actually
works.
depends on the violation.
Yeah.
So,
Look at let's just make it easy. Let's call it speeding on Stony Town Road, right? You could hit the
Hello?
jackpot if you stood there before the 719 train
I
or
know,
653 and people trying to get that train, right? So if
Right.
that's our road,
um,
would we get all the revenue? I guess that's what my question.
you would get the percentage of the revenue that the village is wanting. It's based on the type of violation. So for speeding tickets, the village only gets a percentage, no
Okay.
matter where it is. For parking tickets, you get pretty much 100% of what's taken in.
Talking on a cell phone, what do you get?
A percentage. I would have to call the,
No, I'm just curious.
but you don't get 100% unless you're removing the parking tickets.
Oh, and yes, some of the tickets that were issued were for talking on a cell phone. I forgot that from my list before. But the goal-
If I could- oh, I just-
go, no,
sorry
go
to interrupt.
please, go for it.
But just to be clear, for the cell phone, the points for a cell phone charge are 5 points. I mean, that's a very high impact ticket for a driver. If they're probability of that.
And the goal of these tickets are not to bring in revenue. The goals are to
Yeah,
get
sure.
people to slow down. So
Safety.
I
And
don't
the
care
newer equipment will probably incentivize them to want to use it.
if they had the proper equipment that they're qualified to use or certified to use, they would use it. And it was the recommendation from the 6th for us to update the older equipment. And other villages have done the same thing. It's not unheard of. And I think this amount of money is not that much money in comparison to what possibly could come into the village that would offset that at some point. And this is a price under the state contract. So we didn't have to go out to bid, or I didn't have to go and talk to 10 different companies. So this is pretty good. So what I'd like to do is make a motion to approve the purchase of I'm not even going to say what model number this is, but it's here in a Stalker LiDAR RLR for the sum of $2845, which will be owned by the village, but be permanent loaned to the 6th. And actually the old LiDAR gun still has our Flower Hill, property of Flower Hill sticker on it when they brought it in to show us on the case. So
Maybe Rich can sell it on eBay.
we
He
have
did so well with the truck.
we have a well, we didn't sell the
I think
truck.
we should give it to Frank, because maybe Frank wants to use it. on
We
his
did
lot.
not.
I was just gonna say, you read my mind. We know each other too well.
We actually did
I was
not,
like, I'll take it.
we did not sell the truck on eBay. It was the government website.
Oh, okay.
But technically, that's how we get rid of all of our other surplus devices as well. We give it to an auction company that sells it for us.
All right.
So I'm
You
going to
make
make
a
the motion
motion?
for $2845 to purchase this LiDAR.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everybody. Next on my list, Resolution 9, 2025, the Verizon franchise agreement. I know we approved Verizon in the past, but this is, Marla, explain why I need to reapprove this one.
They need this particular resolution, it's their resolution. Same thing, but they need this, however you forward.
And it's all
The
this,
whole group.
it's all the same almost verbiage of what was before, but this is just something we need to do. So if there's no questions, I will make a motion to approve this resolution.
It says resolution 8 on the paper.
Yeah, tomorrow we'll update it to make it say 9. We discussed it before the meeting. So I'll make that motion, seconded by
I'll second
Trustee Frankel.
it.
All in,
It's not, it's resolution 9.
No. Thank you.
And I think there was a secret determination last time. This is really
oh,
the same
secret,
resolution,
yes,
so
thank you. It was, yes.
I don't
This
think
is-
we needed it.
I don't think so either. All righty, I'm making the motion, seconded by Trustee Frankel. All in favor? No one's opposed. Wonderful. Resolution 10. We need to adopt a workplace violence policy. So it's a policy we don't actually have on hand, but we had a PESH audit, which is the Public Employee Safety Health Department audit. And we haven't had a PESH audit in how many years do you think, Marla?
10.
There you go. So they came in and they audited various things throughout the village, things that will keep our employees safe. And one of their recommendations was to adopt a workplace violence prevention policy. But otherwise, we did incredibly well on this audit, correct?
Yes.
Marla had to do a lot of paperwork on it. And it was a surprise audit. They just show up and say, knock, knock.
Yeah, that's
And Marla goes, who's there? And
kind of
they'd
how
say,
audits work.
they go, Pesh, Pesh who? And it was a surprise. So I don't know if anyone's had a chance to read this, but it seems like it's standard literature. So I will make a motion to approve resolution number 10, the resolution adopting a workplace violence policy. Jeff, do I need to do secret for this?
I would suggest, yes, but this would be a type 2.
All right, I will make that motion as well. So this is for, I'm making 2 motions, seconded by,
I will second.
that would be Trustee Lewandowski. All in favor?
Aye.
Excellent. Next, there's a recommendation to update our policy of good standing with village policy. This policy will mandate that residents who are seeking a building permit or C of O or other types of documentation from the village resolve unresolved violations, pay fines, et cetera, et cetera. We've had some instances where there are some residents with outstanding issues with the village, and then they're seeking more from us. So I think by having this policy in place, it will force or mandate that our residents clear up open issues before they can have another building permit. And that just ensures that we get our funds that are due to us.
Or that a violation gets cured before they.
Or more importantly, a violation gets cured. Thank you. I left that out of my, my little cheat sheet here. Anybody have any questions on this? I will make a motion to, do I need secret for this, Tim? All right, 2 motions. 1, the good standing with village policy, and 2, the secret.
Can I just ask one simple question?
Sure.
What was the level of enforcement or the tool for enforcement as prior to this? Just that on the sheer will of our building department or our clerk or whatever to convince people they have to do it?
I guess so, but in essence, they didn't have to. We had nothing in place that mandated that they had to.
I just assume you have to.
I've used it as
I
a
didn't know
policy.
that to memorialize. it.
Right.
Yeah, I've used it as a policy, but there's nothing in writing on that.
Right.
And it's a typical policy used
Right,
elsewhere, yeah,
Right.
but it's not always, now.
That's not
now you-
enforceable if it's just policy, then it's not enforceable.
With having policies in place, it allows us to enforce certain things.
I just have a language question though. So it says here, the applicant must demonstrate that any open violations. So does that mean the burden is on the applicant to tell us that they have open violations? What if they don't know? Like, would we tell them for, like, you see what I'm saying?
I don't know the wording, but,
I did draft it so that it would be the applicant's burden, because my concern would be that if the person leaves and then the building department determines there's an open violation, they still, even if they didn't notice it at that time, it can still be enforced. I didn't think it would be, the burden should be on the village to say, look, you have an open violation. The person should be aware of their violations and should pay them. And certainly, I do think that the village office will look through any property file at the time that somebody comes in for an application. But it's the applicant's obligation as drafted.
Because in most other municipalities, like the town of North Hempstead, when you file for a building application, they tell you you have open violations. The only other way you would know that is if you make a FOIL request and go through the building file. So an applicant would, I mean, shouldn't it be if someone applies, puts in an application to work, shouldn't the village check the building file to see if, and then
That's what I
notify
do.
them? And then it's their obligation to cure it.
that's what I do. I think maybe if I could put words to Jessica, typically a building permit to close out or to ask for inspections is on the owner of the property to close it out.
That I agree
So
with.
I think maybe that's why it's parallel that way.
That I agree with that, yes.
But when I get a new permit in, I do look for open permits. I go through our file, there are good records on that.
And we notify the,
But maybe I could propose this change in the third whereas paragraph. Where it says, in the second to last line, the village, the applicant must demonstrate, if we just change that to the applicant must resolve any open violations.
yeah, I think that's better. Yeah.
Works for me.
If it works for Peter, it works for me. So we can approve this with that change. So I'm going to make a new motion to approve this resolution, good standing with village policy,
And I'll second.
with the
this.
changes and the secret, and Deputy Mayor Janice has seconded it. Approved by, all in favor?
Right.
Excellent. Next, overnight parking permits policy. So we've had a couple issues that have come up where residents have more cars than they can fit in their parking spot, their driveways. And we always gladly issue overnight parking permits if they're going to have a party, some sort of large gathering, an overnight guest for 1 or 2 nights. And obviously if they're doing driveway work, they're having it blacktopped or repaved, or the pavers or cement work and things like that. So what's been happening is we've had more people coming in saying, you know what? I got a lot of cars and I'm just going to need a permit for perpetuity. And we're like, you can't do that. The whole goal is to have the cars off the streets at nighttime. And we haven't had a policy in place. We had someone challenge us, well, where's your policy? So that's why we have this policy. So really, our goal is to restrict overnight parking permits not associated with a building permit. So if someone is paving their driveway, great, we have a permit. You can have it for the week or whatever is needed for all the cement work to settle. Otherwise, the suggestion was it's 1 week maximum, and you can only have 2 of these in a 6-month window. And again, it's just because we have some people who want to leave cars permanently. One person said, well, I'm having my family member live with us for the next 6 months. We don't have room and we'd like to park on the street for 6 months. We said, we can't do that. So they've got to find an alternative place to put the car, put it in a driveway, park it somewhere else. And that's why we have this policy.
This is currently being enforced by our.
Yes,
code
police
enforcement.
So the
do it.
police enforce it. So what
police do
happens
it.
now is we issue the permit, they stick it in their window,
Okay.
and 98% of the time, police officers don't issue a ticket. Occasionally, they might by accident, they didn't see it.
Yeah.
It wasn't in the window, it was flipped over, it fell down. And that's something the 6th precinct, because our code, it's a big secret, but our code guide does not work between 2 a.m. and 6
Well, that's what I
a.m.
was wondering.
It's the
I'm thinking
NCPD, it's the
some violators
NCPD.
are coming to mind.
It's the
I'm just wondering.
NCPD that does it.
Yeah,
And
that's a
I've
police
seen it.
thing.
We have frequent tickets that come in front of our court.
Interesting.
It's not an infrequent ticket. It's something the officers do, which is good. Shows they're driving around the neighborhood at nighttime. They're checking
totally.
cars out that maybe shouldn't be there. Gary, I think, had a question. I saw him raise his pen.
I have a question.
There's it's one permit per car. Does that mean if you're allowed 2, that you have 2 at concurrent?
No, it's per car, right?
When people ask for, because they cannot use their driveways, in that case, we ask them, how many cars do you have? So if you have 3 cars, we're gonna give you 3 permits. In this case, I'm pretty sure someone would call and say how many they needed, because this is their excess overflow.
Right.
So,
I just wanted to be sure there was some, I mean, obviously, yes, you have to make the case where for a couple of days if you have a driveway or whatever.
even in the whole week.
Right.
But if there's an active permit, we don't have an issue with that. Because sometimes there is some construction work that takes a long time if they're doing. I'll ask Peter because he had a question or
Oh,
comment.
no, I just think, yeah, 1 week for 2, so that's 14 days over 6 months you're allowed.
Right, correct.
And this does, it does have language that says except for construction, so that's the whole separate thing.
Right, because again, the reason we brought this policy up is because people just want to leave cars on the street for months at a time, just because they have more cars than.
And if somebody has a party,
That's fine, overnight, we always grant that, that's not a problem. It's the one-offs we have no problem with, it's the long-term parking.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Can an exception be made? The only thing that sticks out is, because I've seen this in my neighborhood, and not with my parents, but in the event, well, we both have a bunch of cars that fill up our driveways. In the event of hospital care, say if a family person has to say they have a relative in St. Francis and so a family member keeps visiting and has to park on the street, or I've seen there's a woman around my block who had a night nurse who had to be there. She was in hospice and she eventually passed, but they had their person always.
On a case-by-case basis.
I just want to say that we can put something there where an exception can be made.
Well, it's a
Yeah,
policy,
that's-
so policy isn't a law. So we always make exceptions as need be at the discretion of the village
Just
administrator.
checking those things. So, that's it.
you can ask the person to clean their garage out so they can get a car.
There you go. I like
Put
that
that in
idea.
Fair point.
Or in the case of your parents, they could sell me one of those cars in the driveway and then in the garage, and then they would have no
It's
problems.
gonna be my problem. They're just coming out of my house. when
I-
when it's
I
on.
know. All right, so I'm going to make a motion for SECRA and to approve the overnight parking permits policy. Seconded by
I'll second.
Trustee Collins, all in favor? Aye. No opposed, no abstentions. Aha, one of my new favorite ones. In your packet, you will see, hopefully somewhere, if I don't see it in mine, the copy of the quote we received from Metro paving. Is that in our, it's not in my book here, Miss
No,
Marlowe.
no, this is, oh, no.
Here.
Here, if you want.
Yes, why don't you let me, or I can just,
I have it ready.
Wait,
all right. What, Marlo? I thought you
so
would
the
make,
guessing, no, I thought we were,
This isn't approving the agreement, but I thought the board might want to know that.
right, we don't have an agreement, but the pricing will be in the agreement. I'm not
Right.
sure we're passing that around. And we were going to, I thought, enter to allow us to enter into the agreement, which we will bring to the board, but, and then allow the mayor, authorize the mayor to.
So what this, if this resolution were approved, what it allows the board to do is to enter an agreement with Metro
Bless you.
Paving.
isn't tight. I
When we're
opened it.
presented with one that's approvable, to have Metro Paving do the paving work within the village. The reason the village is considering it is that Metro Paving has an ongoing contract, a master contract with the town
Of North Hempstead.
of North Hempstead. And the village would be able to benefit from the pricing that the town is getting in terms of the paving work that the village does. So another village that's doing this, I think is Planned Manor,
Yes.
has already signed on and they have a contract in effect. So this would be something that could save the village some money, but you don't have an approvable agreement yet. This would just allow us to seek to obtain an approvable agreement. And at that point, the board would consider whether or not to go forward. But that's the benefit.
I thought the board might want to know the dollar amount. May may I share that?
Sure.
Did?
Okay. So we're doing 3 areas. Area C is Stony Town from the Plando Manor border. And actually Plando Manor is going to pave at the same time. So we're going to have one nice seam all the way from the train station all the way to almost Port Boulevard. We're going to stop short right at the park at the crosswalk because the water district is still doing their work. But if modern miracle happens and they finish the work before the paving, then perhaps we will pave all the way to Port Boulevard. But that's not a guarantee. That's Area C. Area B is Brookside Drive and Country Club Drive. And that's road that needs to be paved. That is roadway that has a water issue that the village was looking into. And now our friends at Port Washington Water District is going to do some investigation and hopefully some remediation. And with the goal of having it done by this paving time. And then Area A, which is the big area, it's Overhill, Crabtree, Peachtree, Ridge East, and Ridge West. That is all work that is necessary because our friends at National Grid have ripped up all the streets by me to upgrade the gas main. Fortunately, we've negotiated with National Grid to pay for half of Area A, which is a large portion of this project. So the total amount, including milling and paving, is $363,774.75. But I can't give you the breakdown of what portion National Grid would be paying, but it's a good amount of this. So I'm asking if there's no further questions.
I have 2 questions.
Sure.
So was the Metro paving, was that an RFP that was, when was that submitted by the village, the town, excuse me? Because these things tend to, like they're required to do an RFP unless they're a sole source provider, which obviously they're not. So was this a recent RFP? Will it expire next year? Will it be entered in effect for 4 years? What's the tenure?
I'll pull a master agreement. I don't want to give you a date that I'm
Okay.
not sure.
Number 2, with the Stony Town Road, can we negotiate for then, if they're gonna pave that, Randall, the repainting of the bike pedestrian path, or will that be taken care of as part of the money that's allocated? Because that will need to be done, and it is, as you know, widely used.
I think, is that part of this or is that separate? I forgot.
I don't think the striping is. I don't know unless I'm looking at the quotes.
I don't remember. I know we will be restriping the the street and the pedestrian.
And we
walkway.
pay for that, they don't? So I'm just asking, I really don't know.
But they don't have a stripe, they have an actual like
I know, we
sidewalk.
have to do the rumble.
No, I mean, now there's
Yeah.
a yellow line in the middle of Stony Town.
That will be restriped.
Yeah.
And I don't
And
know.
who
if-
does that? We pay for that or they do?
I'm gonna ask for it.
I
I
believe
know we have to pay
we-
for the
we-
rumble strip.
we will pay for it. I don't remember if it's part of this or not.
That's what my
There
question.
was a conversation at one point that it would be part of this, and it's been,
Oh, wait, now generally when we redo a road, don't they restripe it?
Yes.
yes.
So did we ask if since we're,
I'm gonna find out.
I mean,
They may have.
the worst I can say is
included that.
no, you pay for it, but they may
Maybe
say,
Sure,
we
they
may be
will.
able to
So-
negotiate a yes.
So we had that conversation. It was quite a while ago, so I
Right.
don't remember if that.
With
was
this
part of
company or with?
With this company
okay.
specifically.
Gotcha.
I believe this has all been vetted. First of all, the reason that we are doing this right now is because Metro won't even pencil us in until we sort of get this with the board approved. So we want this to happen before kids go back to school in August, before buses start coming. So that's why we're sort of rushing this moment, but
We're not,
yes, this
we're
has
not
been-
rushing this. This
not
is,
rushing, but
this
this
is,
particular, why we don't have the agreement right here. But this has all been hammered out. I know we have to pay for the rumble strip. And I believe the striping is, but I don't want to say it conclusively. I'm asking, okay? Though there is a separate quote for that. I have to answer. So I don't know what that is at this minute. I'll ask.
But I just want to stay with trustee Collins' question, which is, I think.
Two-part question. So the first
Right, the
part,
first part, I need to check the date. The second part is that there has to be an approvable contract by the board. And it should certainly include in the contract that all work related to the road should be included, which will include striping and paint. That should be included in the contract to be prepared for the village.
so then in your
In my opinion,
judgment, it would include the bike walking path?
The painting of it.
Yeah.
Yes,
That's
that's
all
what
we
we
have,
should.
right.
And we'll just make sure that it's in there, and if there's a problem, I'll get back to the board and see if they're rejecting that.
Might as well ask the question, right?
Yes,
Um,
so I'm writing both down, we'll check the vote.
Thank you.
if I remember the conversation I had with Metro a long time ago, I might have had that answer. But I just don't remember. Gary, do you have a question?
I was wondering if, I don't know if it's Steve or whoever could look at something that I think we have an opportunity here. And again, I don't know if it's gonna happen, given the Port Washington Water District stuff. But that end of Stony Town could be restriped in a way that I think still meets what would be normal standards for the lanes and turning radii. But that would allow for additional parking in the shoulder area of, on the park side. I don't know if we're interested in
You want to
that.
add more parking?
Would add more parking.
Down below by the,
Close, and kind of in front of the water
Water thing.
district building.
Right.
Obviously, they have a driveway and whatever, so that cuts into that, but I'm wondering if. we could
The
look at
old,
that.
the old building,
No, the
the
new.
small one.
the smaller one, by the handball.
Or the one on the
Closer to
corner?
Boulevard.
So Gary is talking about the turning
Then you
lane
would
onto
lose the right
Port
turn
Boulevard.
lane.
Yeah, I'm not talking about losing the turn lane, I'm saying the center stripe is more than adequate for the turn onto the westbound Stony Town. And if that got adjusted, it may allow for us to do additional parking, including having a right-hand turn lane and a left-hand turn lane from Stony Town to Port Washington.
Because now it's tough, because when there's a car in the last spot, and you can't make the right turn, because if there's 3 cars ready to make a left, you can't get into
Right,
that.
right.
So now we add 1 or 2 more cars, it's gonna be impossible to
I'm
get
not
into.
I'm not suggesting truncating the right-hand turn lane. I'm suggesting that it might be possible to move all those 2 lanes over enough to allow for parking. I'm just saying we should look at it while we have the opportunity, because why wouldn't we want additional parking if we could not get, at our park?
I thought we should go the other
Because,
way.
you end up with parking all over the place when it's busy.
We should go the other way, toward the handball courts.
Can't go any more farther.
No?
I don't think so. We can look at it, but I don't think so. Anyway, it might,
Is that safe?
While we're going into this project, it's something we should look at.
Okay. Marla will look into it with the engineer on the project. If there's no other questions, then I'm going to re-ask for a seconding of the resolution to enter into agreement with Metro Paving and a secra resolution. Seconded by
I'll second.
Trustee Dorfman. All in favor?
Aye.
Excellent. Next, we are looking to authorize our court clerk to attend the annual Courts Clerk Conference for an amount of $1,045. The event is at the Crown Plaza Albany of the Desmond Hotel. It's very nice. From September 28th to October 1st. Our court clerk has attended this before, and there's very good learnings that come out of it. And I think it's a very good thing when our employees want to further their education. Are there any questions on this? That being said, I would like to make a motion to approve the NISAM-CC conference registration for our court clerk. Seconded by? Excellent. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. New item on the agenda. I sent this to you today. My apologies. I wanted to send it last week, but I was away on vacation. Question last month of what's the process to change the security patrol? So the suggestion by Jeff was to pass a resolution to determine in the future how we want to change the security patrol. Because in the past, we added the patrol with public input at public hearings. We had a public budget hearing. So if we want to terminate or modify the security patrol, it's recommended from our attorney that we go through a similar process of encouraging public input before the board makes that decision. Is there any trustees with questions?
Two questions.
Yes,
One,
sir.
is there a timetable? Because I know if we say we treat it like we did when we enacted it, we can say that we've been talking about it every month for 6 months. Do we want to put a time of what's the appropriate course of action leading up to that? Or do we, is it, because it's pretty broad with, we treat it like we did when we were entering it, which is, we talked about for maybe, 7 months, a year? So I just don't want, we have to, if we have to mimic it, it could just be subjective as to what the course of action is. Is it 2 meetings, 3 meetings, 5, just a timetable?
And question two? I think I did 2 questions.
Oh, yes, I don't know if we can supersede, I know we need 5 for a quorum, but I would suggest on a vote like this, that is a hot kind of button issue, that every board member be present to make their vote. But I don't know if we can supersede the whole 5 of us have to be here.
Well,
It's just an open
the
question.
only reason I wouldn't want to force to have, 7 board members is what if a board member needed to be out for family issues, sick, something where they couldn't attend the board meeting for some time? What if we had a vacancy on the board as well? That would then prevent this board from taking any action. So even that's actually a very good comment. I just think mechanically there might be exceptions that would just hobble the ability to hold that vote. That's all.
And my last thing is just a spelling thing, but on the 4th whereas paragraph, I don't think it should be ensure, I think it's ensure with an E, but that's just, I was reading it very closely today.
Oh.
Yeah.
What do you think, Jeff? Ensure with the E instead of ensure with the I?
Stand correct?
Oh, man. Jeff never makes mistakes. Let's write this down
I paid
today.
really detailed attention to this one.
Jeff Belinkoff makes a mistake. This is a rare event. Any other?
If we bring it up at budget meetings once a year, that would be the time that we would say we want to stop it, right?
If at the budget hearing, it was not funded, that is a way to stop it. Or to stop any other activity of the village by not funding it.
Right, so that would be the only time to, but then you'd still have to have how many public hearings? Well, it's not a law.
No, it's not a local law.
No, it's not a law.
Just as a courtesy, we would have one meeting.
Right, so just to go back, when Trustee Collins had asked about this before, there's no procedure in place right now. So there's nothing that requires this board to hold a public hearing, a duly noticed public hearing, to reconsider this determination. This resolution is drafted would say that it would be the board's policy that there would need to be a duly noticed public hearing for this to occur. And it's not a local law, so it wouldn't be as though we would be publishing in accordance with requirements of the local law. It would be a duly noticed public hearing. We would send it to the newspaper. It could be in compliance with the open meetings law requirements, which would be 72 hours ahead. Let the press know, and it could be posted to the website. And you have a duly noticed public hearing.
But I just think we owe it to the public to have them be able to give input on this matter, and not for the board to be able to do a quick vote with nobody from the public present.
Unless there's
So,
something
yeah, and-
egregious. I'm just saying, this is just covering all bases. If we're still superseded by the contractual, the details, so God forbid they did something really bad or something happened, we could just say, all right, we're done, or we want to do more, or whatever it may be. We're saying, we don't have to wait. If there was some event that,
You could temporarily suspend.
or September, there's other actions we can take in the meantime.
This is a board resolution, so the board can change its resolutions at any time.
Right.
It's not,
Just like a board, just like our policies we just approved, we can change them.
So I would just say that, thank you for putting this together. I support the resolution. And really my whole point was, what is the procedure? Because we had none in place, right? And so you've answered that. What I would suggest is that, and what I asked for last time was, Mr. Frankel asked for it in a different way. He asked to hire a criminologist. Perhaps we're not ready to go that path. But I do believe that we need to, before even if we were to consider having a public hearing, that there should be data that's disseminated. And the data that I would suggest, and what I've asked for is, obviously, the 6th precinct is Nassau County Police Department, right? What are their statistics on Muncie Park? What are their statistics on Plandome? Similar villages of data. I would suggest that we've had the security patrol has been in place for a year and a half. What is our incident versus other villages that do not have, and it doesn't need to be every month, but I think that at least whether it's 3 times a year or whatever the right number is, I don't know what the right number is, but again, I'm a numbers person, I'm a data person, and I think that we need to make informed decisions based on data and not hearsay. And while I appreciate anecdotal evidence of 2 kids walking home, that's great, and that's why we live in Flower Hill. And I'm not saying it's not important, but at the end of the day, I'd like to see data, and maybe we never will have hard, fast data. That again, and we're not going to the lengths of hiring a criminologist, but there is data that exists, and I think whether it's you, Marla, that puts it together, or the board says, yes, I care about data. To me, now we have a procedure. This is great. Thank you. All for it. But I do think that it needs to be a little more robust in the sense that there should be some data, not hearsay, attached to it.
We can definitely do that for next year's budget.
But I think it should be before that, Randall. I think that we, again, is that, why is it, and I've made this point before, we pay over $6 million to the Nassau County Police Department. How many times, what is their incidence? And, Commissioner Ryder came in and said, we're going to increase our patrols. They have that data. Let's ask for it. Let's ask Mayor Cirillo what his data is. Does he have an uptick in crime from last year versus this year? We've had a year and a half of the security patrol. There is data that's available. I do think that we owe it to our residents. And it's not about it's costing you $10 a month for the peace of mind. It's as an overall percentage of our budget, which we will vote on again next year. If it's 13% of our budget or whatever the number is, I think that we need to have data attached to it. That's all. To the extent we can get it. And that's it. And I don't think I'm being unreasonable. And I'd like to hear from other Trustees, Claire, do you think that that's an unreasonable?
Marla will ask Deputy
Request.
Inspector Ryan.
I think that I can
What data
foil,
we
she'll
can
tell me to foil. That's
I
what
think
I
you can
do.
ask the question. I think Commissioner Ryder would be happy to share, or who's the woman that came,
My
the woman
experience, then I
that
can
came and
share,
spoke to us?
but I can foil
Oh, I
all
forgot. her
that
name.
data. And they will take their, they.
Yeah.
they'll
I
give
mean, I don't need it
immediately,
all the time. I just think something.
But I can specifically foil those, they'll give me statistics, they're not gonna give specifics, but they'll give the statistics.
How many car break-ins? How many housing break-ins? What's the percentage? Is it increased? Is it the same? Is it flat? Is it down? Have the Chileans moved elsewhere? I don't know what they have. I'm just suggesting that perhaps there's data that's available. That's all.
Okay, we'll follow up with that.
Can you allow this to open up again, Mayor? to
No,
Public comment?
I will not.
You will not allow it for public
You
comment?
had your opportunity,
Come back
David.
next month.
I missed the early public comment, and I want
3
2
minutes, 3 minutes, David. 3 minutes.
I can have 3?
Sure.
That's a long one. And I'll take 2.
Because when I did run into you last month, you said you were done with this, David.
I didn't know you were actually gonna get
We're not going to
this.
talk, so no more Costco conversations. We will not share sodas together.
I don't know if the board received a copy of this newspaper article I dropped off at the village this morning that each and every one of you should see. I didn't come actually, and I'm delighted that the subject matter came up just when I got here. I didn't come really to discuss it, except to say that being very data-driven and given a resident having given this to me over this past weekend, which I had no knowledge of, it's incumbent upon us to seek out as much valuable information as we can get to make a proper decision. And I don't think we've gotten there yet. And this is just an accounting of something that happened in Roslyn Harbor, where they're reviewing a 10-year use of the security patrol. We should find out some of the pros and the cons. We should do more homework than I think this board has done, certainly than I have done. And as I said from the beginning, we should be risk return oriented. That's all I came to say. And if you've all gotten this article, which I was actually going to drop this as an issue in its entirety, and I sort of expressed that to Randall. But I'm not alone. Apparently, others are looking at the situation. And I'm moved now to say, let's give it a fair hearing. That's all I have to say.
All right. Thank you, David. I'll see you Thursday. You going to Costco? You going to Costco on Thursday?
I was there today.
We go every day. I'll run into you on Thursday.
Every
That's
other.
that's when I'll be there next.
They put a sign out, Frankel's not here today.
That's why I don't go. I
We're
don't
gonna
know the
lose
days you
money.
go. They are very upset, David, when you're not there. All right. Are there any other questions from the board? I'm interested in making a motion to approve this resolution. Procedure to consider ongoing retention of the services of a security firm. Do I have a second?
And I'd ask.
Oh, the secra. Sorry, Jeff. One day you'll get me to remember these things. So 2 motions. One's the secra and one's to pass this resolution. Seconded by
I'll second it.
Deputy Mayor Janice. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Wonderful. Next on our ARC report. Is it going to be a Gary presentation or is it going to be a Peter presentation? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Opinski.
We had 4 applications, 2 were returning applications, 2 were new. 41 Greenbrier, number of changes listed there, they were approved with those conditions. So that's for the board to review. 96 Hemlock, exterior changes from a previously approved design. Approved several of them. One of them, they have to come back and show us that had to do with the column change in color. But the majority were approved. New application, 65 Country Club, that was a new garage with a breezeway attached to the house. One condition there, and approved with that petition being met. 8 Ridge Drive East, exterior alteration, signage, windows, facade. You can see quite a number of comments there. The owner wanted to get moving, so the committee approved the window changes. But they're going to return for a number of the other items, including some material changes and details. That was the June 30th report. And just to clarify a question that came up earlier, I looked up the definitions of piers.
Thank you.
So, pier by definition is a square pillar, and a pillar is defined as an ornamental column or shaft.
Thank you. Learn something new.
All right.
Can only be square, that's interesting.
Square.
So if you make it rectangular in shape, it's not a pier.
I don't know.
Well, what if it's octagonal or hexagonal? Oh my God, Gary, you found loopholes.
I must have played hooky that day in architecture school, I guess.
I've seen octagonal piers.
Oh, yeah. Well, so what do you call the things like, you see them a lot in Brookville or whatever, they're kind of like a decorative.
Well, I call those the wing walls to the church.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, building inspector, superintendent. Does anybody from the community have any questions on the ARC report? That being no, I will make a motion to approve the ARC report of June 30th, 2025, seconded by
I'll second.
Trustee Frankel. Trustee Lewandowski will be abstaining. And so all in favor? Aye. Nobody opposed? Excellent. Next on my list of stuff, Public Works Superintendent Report. You've got a copy of that in your booklet. I have, you've noticed Rich isn't here today. I have relieved him of the responsibility to come to every board meeting because he's here at 6 a.m.
Yeah.
and he doesn't leave here till 9. And I
Yeah.
said, and we were just following what his predecessor was doing. And I said, Rich, he wanted to come tonight. I said, no, Rich, do you need to be here? He goes, I don't
The
need
one
to
time
be here.
though, that was.
Right. So if there's anything he needs to come in for,
I'm
he'll
sure
come
he's
in
sitting
for
with
it.
his phone, like
He
just in
was.
case. Oh, yeah,
Right,
absolutely.
He's probably
like-
listening in. Let's see. There's 2 people watching.
He's
One could
probably-
probably be Rich. Hi, Rich. So he will come to the meetings when we need him to come.
Yeah, that's silly.
I was just
He
trying
works
to.
hard, long enough hours.
I know. That's why Marla and I were having a conversation. We're just
He's
trying
got
to.
a good crew. I mean, can't we cut him a break on start time? No, or can't, I guess can't he cut himself a break on
That's when
start
he
time?
wants to come.
Yeah.
That is his
It's
choice.
also cooler, isn't this summer?
Oh, that's
Yes.
true.
So we have the written report. I will summarize and put it in the newsletter. So if there's
What's
any
going on
questions.
with the planting of the islands?
So
Any of them,
Well,
I
we're
haven't
waiting
seen
for
a
the
flower yet.
fall.
Oh, is it the fall?
Fall, but also, Marla, you're gonna find out from St. Francis if they've heard anything about
No.
that, right? No, no, with the
New York
payment.
State DOT.
Oh, DOT, sorry.
I got a lovely letter in my mailbox from my side of the community asking if we would pitch in and a copy of the plans and.
all right. So
For where?
I can.
Yeah, for Warren Drive.
Yeah.
She was lovely, yeah. She
Yes.
dropped it in everyone's mailbox and
She is a.
Yeah, we like B. Yes, B.
I hope she got a good response. I made sure I emailed her, but it was nice to receive the note.
Yes, so we're hoping to do something on Waring. It's a little late, but we were hoping to do it earlier, but due to technical difficulties, she got the letter out later, but we'll figure that out.
September, right? Is that what we said? we were
Well, if you're
gonna
gonna do bulbs and stuff.
We agreed that it would be in the fall, so that would possibly be September, whatever the proper, and Rich will continually speak to, his name Kevin, what's his name?
No. Kevin Natali?
Yes.
Natalie, how do you, no.
Well, I'll call him Kevin for the long, so I don't butcher his last name. And we'll find the proper window based on the weather. But Marla does have some good news to report about planting.
We planted, at the request of St. Francis, which I told Trustee Cal, they wanted us to do some plantings while they're getting ready for the Manhasset Woods one. So if you've noticed, or maybe you didn't, we planted 2 islands medians on Port Washington Boulevard. And they are thrilled with them. We put up little signs that say,
Sponsored by. or
Sponsored
whatever.
by. And they like it, they want me to send them a picture of it so they can send it out to their staff, which is nice for everybody. We just, to the point of planting in the fall, the hydrangeas are not thriving, so we're gonna try to replant something. One more shot on the ends before we take the picture and send it out, and if not, we'll replant those ends on the,
Hydrangeas
Fall.
sometimes won't do anything for a year or
Yeah,
two.
right.
Because we planted them a couple of years ago. For 2 years, they did nothing.
No, these-
And I
these
said,
were-
rip them out. And this year, they're like,
Frank,
Really?
these were croaking.
This
Oh,
this is
they-
not,
they-
this is not fluff, this is like
Oh.
not
so
living.
it's
they
all
get
right.
dead.
They were not only blooming.
and now I have these giant things in front of the house like this. And it's like,
If they had got planted in April, they probably would have been fine, but the fact that, yeah.
yeah, it's too
He
hot
spoke
now.
with Kevin, who gave him some other ideas to, I forgot, maybe you know what he, cone flowers?
Cone flowers, that's what we're discussing
Cone
He
today.
suggested cone flowers.
Yes.
So we're gonna try for that.
Nice.
We're going to even try to do that in the colors of the hospital, like yellow and blue. Do that.
We do need
And
color.
so
We
they
need
are
color.
happy, so I'm happy, they're happy.
In villages like in black and white.
Successful, but
We need color in the village. It's
Yeah.
like watching an old black and white TV. And then you go to Muncie
Yes.
Park and it's like, whoa, look at all the flowers.
And before the
Right.
fall, I will reach out to the business
Up the
community
hill.
again and see if there are more people now that we have some.
Right.
You know, the successful ones.
Yeah, they're
Nothing from the DOT, right?
No, nothing, I mean, they're just still on track, I don't have a
On
date, I
track.
will ask again.
Yeah,
I mean,
that means a year from now.
That means a year
no,
from now.
I think they're going out to bid that, I think.
Can we just, like, is it possible to just put grass seed there so that it's not just brown dirt? I mean, that's
And
cheap.
weeds,
What?
it's mulch and
weeds.
weeds
Yeah, I
right
would say,
now.
I wouldn't mind so much if it was just mulch, right, the weeds are.
But the mulch is not controlling the weeds right now.
You cannot plant grass seed now without
Yeah.
constant
You can
irrigation.
get free
You need
mulch. You know, you can
irrigation
get free
for that.
mulch.
Yes,
There's a website that local gardeners, you can, and they deliver it to your house. But it's not the colored stuff. It's just plain wood chips.
so we
That's what I
can
want.
get as
Yeah,
much
that-
wood chips as we want, which we've used in various areas in the
Yeah.
past. Our partnership with our tree company, they will give us as
Oh,
much as we
okay.
want.
Good, because
So it's
you
never been a
can,
problem.
you can get, I know.
Yes. All right. Zoning report, village attorney.
Provided there was one. matter
Chip drop, in case anybody wants to know, it's called.
To decision that was on the Lonnie application for a parking variance, which the Board of Zoning did approve, put in the packet. The basis for the board's decision, essentially what Lonnie was asking for was to maintain fewer parking spaces than were required. And the manner in which they're doing it is through twofold approach. They're having valet parking and they have a license agreement with their neighbor, which allows them to park additional cars with the valets in their neighbor's parking lot. The presentation actually showed a couple of things that the BZA found helpful. The design of the parking now would hopefully pull the traffic off of Northern more because people will be driving in and parking immediately toward the back, so it would hopefully avoid that queuing effect that people have probably been seeing. The second thing, obviously, is that with the license agreement in effect, they would need as many parking spaces on their own property, they'd be using their neighbors, and the valet would be helping with both of those issues. The key questions that the ZBA members had were, what if the license agreement goes by the boards, and what if the valet parking agreement disappears? And what was decided is that the board would be approving the application subject to the license agreement having to remain in effect, the valet parking agreement having to remain in effect. And if there is going to be any modification, termination, the board has to be notified, and it'll come back before the ZBA for redetermination as to what has to be done to make sure that the criteria that the boards felt were met this time still remain met. The license agreement is just what it says, and it is a license, it is revocable. The owner of the property who agreed to it did not want to be pinned down forever because that's a location where we may put in another restaurant, who knows? So they didn't want to be bound, and that's why the BZA felt pretty strongly that while this looks good and it will work, we would want to be protected in the future. The second thing, and I know that all board members are aware of this still has to come back before you for site plan review.
Right.
So whatever BZA had decided, this board still looks at the parking, can ask questions about the parking, and the whole site plan, and can make whatever requirements this board wishes to make as well. There are two distinct applications and considerations. The final thing I wanted to mention, because I don't think it was clear in the report that I gave you, is that the BZA made their determination subject to a written decision. They will not be reviewing a written decision until this month's meeting. They just met in June. At their July meeting, which is in a couple of weeks, they'll be reviewing a draft written decision, and acceptable, then approve that.
Which is why I felt that it was necessary for this board to be able to read that written decision before Lamani could come back in front of this board for the site plan review. It's just fair that we have that information as a board and not rush the decision.
And that's also because I can't guarantee what BZA
Right.
might want changes in that decision, and
Right.
then this board will want to know that.
Okay, so this hopefully could happen in August, but if we don't have all the data, then it'll happen in September. We'll have that public hearing.
What's going on with that office building next to Landmark Diner?
Would you like to address that, or is it premature?
No, what we've done is, they're still in architectural review, but to fast track it, we've given them a permit to begin the restructuring of steelwork. All that's gonna be subject to getting architectural review, but we wanted to, they had a timeline for getting things started and completed. So we felt we can accommodate in that way, leaving open the exterior design. So they'll be starting, they're getting contractors together now. They just gave us a nice fee for that work, and it'll be starting soon.
The owner is very, very interested in a quick resolution to get this property updated.
I heard there was a new architect on the team.
Yes.
I guess they're locked into insurance money.
Be interesting to see who that architect is.
All right.
You don't know who the architect is?
Why don't we not talk about that publicly?
I'm not gonna mention names, I'm just asking.
I
Right, we're allowed to ask who an architect is.
don't know who it is. They said somebody they worked with before,
Okay.
but a new person on.
Well, hopefully, yeah, they'll be able to move it along.
Mayor's report. Actually, I'm going to go back to the Marlar report. Do you want to talk about Manhasset Woods Road?
Yes, I'm just gonna mention, and see if anybody has any feedback about this, but I did get a couple of complaints about driving on Manhasset Woods Road with all the landscape trucks parking. Apparently, at some point, some previous time, they used to park in people's driveways, and now they don't, and it's dangerous.
They used to park on the shoulder too, until everybody put giant boulders.
You know what, you're so right, when you go Bonnie Heights and you go
Yeah, it's bad.
going south on Manhasset Woods Road,
It's
there
dangerous,
were
you
like
like see
three
them around.
trucks
the
there
corner.
the other, really dangerous.
You go around the turn, you
And I
don't
don't
see
remember
them.
seeing that, you're right, it wasn't.
They
No,
used to-
it's been problematic in waves for years.
Yeah.
Ebbs and flows. Sometimes there's problems, sometimes there isn't. There is. So Marla's going to make some suggestions and do some research on what might make sense to improve the safety of that road.
I mean, the only easy thing to do is, and we weren't very successful in the prior administration, is getting rid of the boulders, which look ridiculous. I mean, it's so stupid looking when you drive up and down Manhasset Woods Road. But no one's gonna move them, so, because they used to kind of put one wheel up on the shoulder and it was a little bit better. But you can't like ride a bike on Manhasset Woods Road anymore, you can't.
Walk on it.
Yeah, you can't, because there's no room.
So Marla will come up with pros and cons of various ideas. and then we can discuss it at a future
Or
meeting.
if anybody has any, I mean, it's challenging.
Or if anybody has any ideas, shoot Marla an email.
Right.
Give her some ideas or suggestions, and then we'll reach out to the people and see what's up. We're replacing the railing on the front of the porch all the way down to the handicap parking lot. It is, portion of it is damaged, portion of it's rusting, so it's going to be removed on Friday. We're going to put a temporary railing up within the same day of when that railing is removed on Friday. If not, it'll be on Saturday. Good thing is the building will be closed by the time the railing is removed, and it'll be replaced in about a week. And then my favorite part is most of it is being paid by a court grant. So that'll be less of a burden on the taxpayers. And what else do I have of interest on my mayor's report? I didn't see Mary Jo. We went at different times. We went to the Art Guild. I think you were there for their annual.
Spoke, I was there.
Yeah, I left. I had something else. So I was there early. I left
I
before
got
you
there
got
after,
there.
I spoke, I was there.
Yeah, that was a wonderful event that was
Yeah,
there.
I was there.
Nothing exciting at NCVOA.
No,
Nothing exciting to report on that. I'm going to do a very important write-up in the newsletter on one of Marla's very important hot topics, paint.
Oh, well.
Because
Well, I think along ones, I see paint in the road, so I think it's.
people our residents are not disposing of their paint properly, and it gets in the truck, and then it crushes, then there's paint on our roads. So I'm going to ask,
So the deep dive into how to bring yourself paint.
yes, so we don't have our roads messed up with the paint, beautification.
You know, I don't think people read this stuff, though. That's the problem.
You know,
You know, unless you mail it to their house, a lot of people don't go online and. they don't
So
go to
I
the
find that we get feedback from residents. People I run into thank me for the newsletter. So listen, I could lead a horse to water, but I can't make it drink.
Yeah.
I will continue to put these types of tidbits in our
And this
newsletter.
information we could put on the website also.
Yeah.
I found out that Outburst takes 5 cans
Yeah,
of paint.
they'll take it
which I
back.
didn't know, that's good, to me, that's good info. And that there is such a thing as paint partner, which I also didn't know.
Yeah, me either. So there was a state law, I had to work on this for my real job, a paint reclamation project. So there are places that are required to take paint back.
Yes.
If you did buy it online, they are also required to take it back. So if I
Wow.
can help you with this, let me know.
Thank you, no,
Yeah.
it is upsetting to me
Well,
to
we
see
should-
paint in the road.
Right.
Yeah.
When we've, you know.
Yeah.
We should-
we
yeah, we should
spend
gather up,
thousands of
like,
dollars.
Best practices kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Yes.
And-
That's what I'm going to do,
Yeah.
but I'm announcing that. I actually met a company at a trade show that provides that service, but we would have to have the paint collection here. And I really don't want to be a
There
paint
are
collection
some
site.
places
No,
that
I-
you
no,
can
I-
put kitty
mean,
litter in the
Just
can.
bring your own
It's
paint
all-
This is
cans to
edu-
the-
this is
to the village
education,
hall.
it's not.
I'm gonna email you, was any information you give me, I'm gonna
I like that idea.
Of what?
You like that?
So we can make an
A
event
PR
out of it.
opportunity.
Make an event out of it.
Yeah.
Bring
Bring
your
Bring your own
can.
paint cans
Up
to
to
Village
Village Hall
Hall,
Day.
like she does the computer, recycling, e-waste recycling, that kind of thing.
I just, the responsibility of leaking paint all over our
Yeah,
village
no, I
hall.
know.
Richie will get ready. to
I-
cook it.
Yeah, I hear you.
If he was here now,
He'd
he'd
kill it.
he'd
Yes.
look at you with his
Give
dirty
me
eyes.
science, yeah.
Yeah, give me the stink eye. It's an interesting concept, but I don't think it's something we're ready to do. And I think that is we had the Katie Oppo run, great event. Liz did a great job as always. And that's all I have to say. Trustees reports?
I
Sounds,
have a couple of things I want to discuss.
okay.
Um, So we kind of got a short version. I don't know if there's a long version of what's going on with the Port Washington Water District project. Like, what's the timing of finishing that project? Do we know?
I do. Just put away my notes. Give me 3 seconds.
Can you see how big it is from the park? When you're in the park, my
Yeah.
God, it's like a 7-story building.
That's my husband's like,
Well,
it's
it's like,
really.
it's like what?
But I did
What?
see Mindy Germain at, what was it, the Science Museum thing,
Yeah.
and she was raving about how great Flower Hill was. Oh, that's a great community.
Well,
She
listen,
realized we had absolutely no choice in the matter.
Yeah, yeah,
If we could have stopped it, we would have stopped it.
the reason it needs to be so tall is
You need
those,
the
the
head.
GAC tanks
Head height.
can't really be below grade.
You need head height,
Yeah.
yeah. So you need-
And the well is there and the building,
You just
it's
need
been,
some really tall evergreens on the park side.
they will work with us on the
Arborvitae.
replantings. And I think they've been a pretty willing and good
Yeah.
partner on this. Anytime I have
But weeping
questions.
willows, like I did my yard, they grow to like 100 feet in 4 years and cover your house.
So since you asked about the water district, I'm gonna put it in the newsletter, but I'll tell you
Oh,
now.
so I couldn't-
No, I'll tell you now.
I can wait.
I have nightmares.
The well will be installed this
Branch coming
week.
in.
In the middle of July, the truss should be in and roof work will start.
Yeah, and you haven't even seen the gable roof on it yet. You think it's high now?
Let me finish. The water district is still looking for an in-service date by the end of the fall.
So it's gonna add another 15 feet to that.
So,
It's gigantic.
Are we gonna have a ribbon cutting?
so
I don't know, perhaps.
October, November.
Rosalind did a ribbon cutting. I'm sure as we get close to that time, we'll want to do it. Other questions, Gary?
I just wanted to, so I don't know if anyone besides my business partner has kept up with what's going on in Manor Haven with development.
Very interesting.
Right.
On Manhasset Island?
Yeah, well, it's throughout the village, but particularly Manhasset Island. So I did go to the board meeting 2 weeks ago roughly. And it was, I mean, a lot of public, or fairly irate public showed up to really voice their complaints and their reasons why they're unhappy with the current administration here. So in light of what we've done, and I applaud what we've done on a proactive execution of this code change to do the average density thing. So we're kind of getting at it from a zoning quantitative point of view, even though we are going for some qualitative results out of it. I think there is a qualitative exercise or policy or I don't know what that we need to think about so that we get in front of the public on this, because I don't know when this is going to arrive at our front door, but it will arrive eventually. And I think we need to have not only the board prepared, but our community prepared for what's next. And I think that's good. And we had this idea of doing some kind of planning study 2 years ago and we shelved it, but I think we need to think about getting that back onto the front burner.
Yeah, Marla and I have actually been discussing this for a while.
Okay.
And we're just not ready to bring it to the board yet.
All right.
By the way, that did pass,
Yeah, and yet there's going to be a moratorium currently. So, I don't know what's happening there.
I gotta speak to Joan.
But it's just, it's just a sign of the times. And
Which is why 2 years ago, and when those quotes came in, that RFP was very, very expensive. We didn't think it would be that much money.
But do we have any
It is
zoning
that-
districts we don't have any zoning districts where you could build mass,
Sure, we do.
just the apartment district.
No.
That's it.
no, but it's not, this is not about multifamily versus single family. This is about what density you're talking about, at what scale, and at what land utilization is really probably the most critical point. And I think that's what Peter was trying to address, is that the flexibility of, being able to talk about how land is being used, as opposed to just kind of, putting a kind of a rigid zoning formula onto the piece of land.
Well, and I think paired with a development like that, we would do a full environmental impact.
Right.
Where they, yeah.
Right.
That's a whole study, traffic, everything that goes.
Right.
That, and, we would just declare ourselves the lead agency on that.
But the key point in this is that if you come at it, and we, Frank and I know from our, and certainly maybe Peter does it too, it's from your professional life, is like if you don't get ahead of this and let the community feel like they're engaged somewhat in what's happening, the whiplash on this is incredible. And we haven't talked to John, but I'm sure he's been feeling that, and maybe he's okay with it, but I just feel like there was some things that could be avoided if we just get ahead of it.
Fortunately for us, our properties aren't zoned the way they are on the
Right.
side. So that zoning in place, I believe, was part of the problem. We don't have that type of zoning.
Yeah, but they didn't either. That was all done with variances.
Right.
They exceeded the height by 15 feet.
Right.
Which, is a couple of other projects in that village are planning to do
And who
that.
knows, but you can talk all about what is right and wrong or what you don't like or not on for each of us. But it's really, what the public doesn't have always, they don't have the right to say this is all that can be, but they can at least have a voice, feel like they have a voice. And I think that's what I'm just trying to express.
Well, if this board has the appetite to spend the money on a formal planning study, we can definitely go that route. Do you remember what last time it was low six figures? wasn't
Right, and
which is
at the time there was money sources. I think I'm not so sure if there's stuff like that. Like for instance, you could have made the case. You could have used some of the ARPA fund for something like that. But so I don't know if we are in a bad position now. But anyway, let's continue the conversation.
We can do that. Why don't we look at the old RFP and just get a benchmark of what those costs were. Marla, do you have those old files? You should have those files somewhere. Let's try to find them. And Gary, you and I can talk about what we asked for, what the responses were, and the strengths and weaknesses, and if it's something we want to readdress and go back to RFP again. All right, anything else? That being said, our next meeting is on August 4th at 7 p.m. I'm going to make a motion to end the July 7th, 2025 Board of Trustees meeting. Seconded by?
I will second it.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. All in favor?
Aye.
Let me go turn.